Most of the finance teams that I speak with, they're still bogged down with manual, spreadsheet heavy processes. They spend more time gathering and reconciling data than they do analyzing it. I've seen companies, true stories, open and close divisions. I've seen them start and stop product lines. I've seen people hired and fired because of errors in an Excel workbook. They have scaled their revenues, and in some cases, not just doubling their revenues, but tripling, quadrupling, quintupling the revenues, like without adding a single person to their finance team, right?
This is the Bender CFO Podcast, where we empower business owners to gain financial clarity and maximize growth.
Hello, everyone. Today's guest, Neil, has spent over 25 years helping companies evaluate, select, and implement enterprise resource planning, ERP, customer relationship management, CRM, and financial planning and analysis, FP&A systems. So in 1999, he was part of Canada's first Navision partner reseller organization. That's what we now know as Microsoft Dynamics 365. With decades of experience in enterprise software, Neil brings valuable insights on how technology drives business performance. Profix, where Neil has been over the last 5 years, is a global leader in financial performance management, empowering finance teams to lead with clarity, capacity, and confidence. Welcome to the show, Neil.
Jane, really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is great. I had an opportunity to meet up with Neil over the last few months, specifically with one of my clients, and we ultimately chose Profix as our solution for FP&A system. That's financial planning and analysis. So anybody that is trying to figure out how to get all their data, all their information in a way that you can make better decisions. And ultimately, it's a lot about improving profit. And that is what my situation was with one of my clients. So I'm going to just ask you, though, because you work with a lot of different businesses and come across a lot of different challenges. What are some of the key, most common pain points that you're seeing?
Thanks so much, Shane. That's an absolutely great question. And honestly, the pain points that we hear from customers and prospects, they are remarkably consistent across industries. Most of the finance teams that I speak with, they're still bogged down with manual, spreadsheet heavy processes. They spend more time gathering and reconciling data than they do analyzing it. There's this constant struggle that we hear consistently about how to connect planning, reporting, actual performance. They have systems that don't talk to each other. People end up copying and pasting data between tools. It really slows everything down and introduces a lot of risk. And at the end of the day, the result for the finance team is they become very reactive instead of strategic. Teams are closing their books. They're not shaping the business. They're not combining that with expectations from the C-suite to forecast better, provide better insight to the organization. And the finance teams, they want to be a true strategic partner, but they're just a perfect storm of inefficiency in the way that they're currently doing it.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw in some of the pain points that I experienced in the discovery project, because I would assume that this is like common. It depends on the system, but like in this particular situation, they were using a system where they were pulling data into Excel from another server, another database effectively. And it was a lot of data refreshing. So you had to refresh the data and the data would come in, and some of these files were huge and would take forever to refresh. And then you also have a situation where somebody's like, multiple people can't be in the file refreshing at the same time. So then you've got like version control issues and multiple realities and the bottleneck because of that. So do you see, is that when people are coming to you, what are they like, what's happening? Like, how much time do you feel like they're spending on all this stuff? Like, what's their...
I can completely understand what you're referring to, Shane. Like years ago, companies used to do annual budgets. It was a once-a-year process. It was painful for everybody. Now companies, they want monthly reforecasting. Now a company, they have a board of directors that says, I need 3 sets of financial statements under the following scenarios and business assumptions. So what happens if labor costs increase by such and such percent? What happens when the supply chains get disrupted? What happens when raw material costs go up by 7%? What about different tariff scenarios? They really struggle to put those together. There's just not enough hours in the day. A true story that I tell people, I switched from ERP. I did that for 20 years before I came to FP&A with Profix 5 years ago. And ERP systems, they're really good at collecting data, right? They do such a good job of collecting historical data. But what ERP doesn't do a very good job of, it doesn't really use that data to look forward, to look into the future, to plan, to budget, to forecast. And I saw customers, they were taking all these data points, all these systems, all this information, dumping it into Excel. They would dump it in for budgeting, actuals, forecasts. They built these massive spreadsheets, like massive to the point where someone would show me 5 minutes to open up an Excel workbook. And here's the real problem. Excel, it's not a database. It's not a collaboration tool. It doesn't have workflow. It doesn't have auditing. It doesn't have security. And you think about it, the customers that, you and I both know, customers that we deal with every day, they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sometimes they spend millions of dollars collecting that data in their GL, in their CRM or HRS systems, in other systems. They disconnect it from all the rules in those systems that kept it accurate, and they dump it into Excel. They dump it into Excel, and they wonder why those processes for analyzing, predicting, and forecasting break down. Another way that I say it is in my ERP career, I've seen companies, true stories, open and close divisions. I've seen them start and stop product lines. I've seen people hired and fired because of errors in an Excel workbook. So think about that for a moment. That's not the legacy that people want to leave going forward.
Yeah, and I worked in Excel a long time. I've worked in spreadsheets and models, and for a long time myself as a fractional CFO, and I know how easy it is for that to happen, and even situations that are not that complex. So you add as businesses grow and become over 20, 30, 50 million, 100 million in revenue, it just becomes just impossible. You can do it, but it just becomes impossible, or you have to hire more people, or I came up with 4 reasons that I feel like I try to dwindle it down to 4 reasons. One of them is it's just like a data refresh version control. It's data in bad data because the data isn't refreshed. There's some kind of confusion on the version or that kind of thing. Or like you said, using incorrect data to make decisions. So the other one's a bottleneck issue. The second one, bottleneck. You can't collaborate well because you're stuck on Excel's gotten a little bit better in the years in the last, same with Google Sheets, where you can have multiple people in a file at the same time, but it's still, like you mentioned, security issues. Like maybe there's a tab in there you don't want them to see. I want them in there, but I don't want them to see everybody's salary. That's a problem. So it's just bottleneck issues. And then it's time. People spending too much time, too long to close their books, too long to get it done. And then it becomes an unreliability. And maybe I could take the accuracy and reliability and dwindle this to 3. But at the end of the day, if your data is not accurate, it's unreliable, it takes too long, and there's a bottleneck because it's all stuck on one person, and you have version control problems and confusion, you can see why it would be really difficult to have to be able to run your business.
I absolutely agree, Shane, like wholeheartedly. With Profix One and our financial performance platform, like we really help companies solve these problems in different ways, in a way that feels different from traditional finance processes. And what I mean by that is we're not just automating tasks. We are really helping the finance department, helping 5 people be as productive as 15 people. At Profix, we call it autonomous finance, right? It's where we're combining the human strategy element with AI and artificial intelligence embedded into process. So with Profix, we can take everything from your budgeting process to your close process. It all lives on one interconnected platform. AI is infused across every single workflow. It's not a bolt-on. This is embedded within the DNA of the application. And it means that we can help you forecast, report, do variance analysis, all in real time from a single source of the truth. What our customers love about Profix One Intelligence and the way that we're using AI is that they can talk to their data in real time, the same way that you would talk to a business analyst that's sitting beside you. And what autonomous AI brings to the table with Profix is imagine you can have an unlimited number of AI agents, right? So if you're a finance department of 6 people, you can have multiple different AI agents per person, all automating all of that rote administrative work, part of processes, and giving all of that time back to the finance department to be strategic for the business.
Yeah, you definitely. And I did want to lead into ultimately Profix is what we chose in this situation. And you just explained like all the reasons why Profix is a solution to solving the pain points and the issues that we just talked about. Yeah, and and you obviously mentioned AI and everything. So tell me, like, if a company goes and implements a system like Profix One, a specific Profix One, what is the transformational impact that they would see in their business? We might answer some of that question. Is there anything more that they might see?
Yeah, autonomous finance, it's like having an extra teammate that never sleeps. They can handle all the heavy lifting while finance team focuses on the strategic elements that add value to the business. So when a customer modernizes their FP&A with Profix One, 3 things happen. And we call them the 3 C's. You mentioned it in your introduction. We call it clarity, capacity, and confidence. And what we mean by that is you get clarity from a single trusted view of your financial data. You get capacity because AI handles all of those repetitive tasks. and it's auditable. And when you bring those three things together, the finance department shifts from being the department of no to the engine of no, KNOW. It's where strategy starts.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. That's great. Tell me a little bit specifically about manufacturing companies. Now, granted, I think I used Profix in a couple different situations in the past. One was a distribution company, one was a marketing agency. So it's definitely usable in other industries, but the specific example of that we recently is in manufacturing. So why is it a great solution for manufacturing companies?
Absolutely. We think that Profix, it's a great solution for all kinds of industries, but we have a tremendous amount of customers that are in manufacturing. And when you think about manufacturing, it's one of the most data intensive industries, and it's really where Profix shines. Manufacturers, think about companies that you mentioned earlier, Propel, Tycrop, they're dealing with constant change. They have fluctuating material costs, they have very complex supply chains, there's labor variability, tight margins. So we bring all of these moving parts together into a connected model. We give leaders the ability to plan and pivot in real time, make adjustments to the market. And because it's built it's built by finance for finance professionals, it integrates directly with all the data sources that they have, their ERPs, their CRM, the operational systems that manufacturers already use.
Okay. Obviously, I'm a finance person here, and part of the reason is like we want to make sure that this investment pays for itself.
Yeah.
So, do you have a good case study? I mean,
Yeah.
or some example like where implementing this for a manufacturing company really implemented value just enough to pay for itself?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of examples. A lot of people talk about bringing time back to the organization. And I mean, in some ways that's really table stakes. Like, of course, we're going to save you time, but that's not going to materially move the needle for a business. I'll use manufacturing as an example. Think of a company, 50 to $250 million. If we could make a 1% improvement in the margins on jobs that they do, that could drive hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe over $1 million return on investment by making those jobs more profitable, by better scenario planning, better analyzing the data and making decisions in real time.
Yeah, that it's not the math is very feasible, as you were mentioning. $100 million manufacturing company improves their margin by 1%, it's $1 million. A 0.5% is $500,000. The cost of this tool it depends on what you get, but we're talking like 35 to 50,000 a year, roughly, maybe more. Just all depends. But you wouldn't take but like a small fraction of a percent to effectively pay for itself. Now you have to implement it correctly. You've got to one specific example where we're looking at job costs for different, and so there's already an Excel file where it calculates all these job costs. That was another issue, whether that Excel file was refreshed correctly or had all the data in there correctly. You have that, and then you have a budget, and having that real-time comparison to make decisions and adjustments before the job's over. Because most of the time you're looking at it, oh, how did that job do? A month later, you weren't going to change that job whatsoever. Now, it can be useful for pricing things and for the future, but you couldn't change anything with what happened to that. It was over. Being able to do it real time can be highly valuable.
You're absolutely nailing it on the head, Shane. It's the speed, right? If you think about it, what is the heart of the ROI conversation for manufacturers? It's not because it's a cost-cutting tool. It's because we unlock visibility and speed that directly impact profitability. Right? If you're a manufacturer, anything that we can do to better understand material costs, labor, machine downtime that can change margins to the positive, you can see those shifts happen in real time, not weeks later when, to be honest, it's too late, miss that window of opportunity. So it's that real-time insight that allows, I guess, the leadership team of organizations and manufacturers in particular to adjust those production schedules or their pricing or their procurement strategies so that they can protect those margins that might otherwise slip away, those opportunities.
That's great. Yeah. We're obviously talking about AI, about everything, every one of these podcasts. Just tell me a little bit about agentic AI, which is how it's become a major topic in finance operations, how you're using it to reshape FP&A and decision making.
Great question, Shane. So agentic AI, it's really taking that finance team and it's moving it from insights to action. So agents, think of them literally as an infinite number of business analysts that are working for your organization. They're intelligent, they're teammates, they can execute tasks on your behalf. So an FP&A analyst, they could ask the system to start a budgeting process. And the agent, it'll automatically prepare the templates, it will send out the templates. The agent can automatically create the variance analysis and narrative. It can put together the board presentation that has to be presented to the senior leadership team.
Right. Every time I talk about AI, my brain starts to I just start getting confused here. So within the system, you set up an agent
Yeah.
and then you certain tasks, like what is exactly happening to get
The
that to
thing,
work?
it's absolutely, Shane, and I can completely understand it. It's a new topic for a lot of people. You don't have to be an AI expert. You just really have to have curiosity, a vision for how you want to add value to the organization. So think of this: identify any repetitive process that drains time but doesn't add insight. That's your starting point for what an agent can do. Then you focus
Mhm.
on the data quality, the governance, the process. The best way to start is to think big picture. What's going to materially move the dial for the business, but start
Mhm.
small in terms of the use cases that you're going to tackle. And the way that we've designed Profix One Intelligence is it scales with you. Those AI assistants that autonomously execute things within the organization, they will grow with you as the company grows.
Yeah, and I can see it highly valuable. You can think about companies that have multiple. If you really wanted to grow out a good FP&A team, say 10 years ago, or you have the director of financial planning and analysis, and you have some financial analysts, and they're all pulling data, and of course you've got accounting and controllers, and they're helping too. It's some collaboration there, and it can become a pretty expensive cost center. Unfortunately, they think of it as a cost center in most cases, but what you're talking about is ultimately to hire a financial analyst would be $80,000 US dollars. I don't
Yeah,
know. At the time of this recording, with inflation, who knows where it's going?
yeah,
But I'm just saying that's a very affordable idea to be able to train an agent to help you do that.
yeah. It amplifies the people that you have at your organization.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me, what's some other advice that you might give mid-market manufacturing companies, anybody like as they prepare for this next wave of intelligent automation?
Yeah, I think companies have to take a good hard look at the data that they have within their organization. They have to understand the processes in their businesses that are going to materially move the needle. We can do things like personnel planning, OPEX planning. In some ways, we almost call them table stakes because they're so easy for organization. But when you get into the areas of the business from a planning perspective that really impact the margins more, like when it comes to revenue planning, job planning, things like that, those are areas of the business that we know can materially move the dial in terms of profitability. We have customers, they have scaled their revenues, and in some cases, not just not just doubling their revenues, but tripling, quadrupling, quintupling the revenues, like without adding a single person to their finance team, right? So
Mm.
being able to think in the mindset of, hey, I'm an analyst, I'm working for the finance team. Here's the parts of my job that are rote, administrative, non-value add. Let's use AI and let's let AI help us automate that so that I can use and grow the amount of time that I spend helping the business be more strategic and, of course, move its priorities forward.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. This is a good discussion for sure. And I think that there's a tremendous amount of value. And one of the things that I wanted to say real quickly after this discussion is that sometimes companies, this all sounds like a great idea. And maybe you're a type, somebody's listening to this and they're like, yeah, we don't have half of this. We don't have any of this. We need to implement the system. But it sometimes, and Profix does a good job of helping to implement, but sometimes if you don't have anybody that's done any FP&A experience on your team, or there are ways to be able to come alongside fractional CFOs, fractional FP&A type personnel to really help you structure things correctly so that implementation is more seamless and that you can get to that point of really getting that savings faster.
Yeah.
Because just like anything, software is really, it's only as good as the time and the structure that you put into it. You have to set it up correctly. So it's very important. So getting good advisors, good people, good alongside you is very helpful. You have any thoughts there about
Yeah,
that?
I just wanted to say, Shane, because when I first met you, you came to us and said, "Hey, I have a customer, I have a client who's looking at various solutions in the marketplace for FP&A." And one of the things that you really made my job easier, being a fractional CFO that was advising your client, because you worked with the client in advance and you said, "Look, what are the most important business KPI? What's the point of putting a tool in if we don't really know why we're measuring what we want? Or if we're measuring things that aren't going to materially move the dial towards profitability for the business?" I remember the first conversation I had with you, I was like, wow, I wish all my customers came this informed. And it's a really important thing. When we deal with people, customers, they all have day jobs. So they're all working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. They don't have those extra hours in the day. And I know in the engagements on this project, you brought a tremendous amount of insight to their business, a tremendous amount of best practices from different industries, because you've worked with a lot of different industries, and you help them get organized to properly evaluate a tool like Profix. So in effect, you helped me deliver a better version of what I thought Profix could do for them. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's been good. We're really making some good progress right now. And we hope to come back and give you even another podcast. We will, it's not hope, we will have another podcast saying this is what happened once we started using the system and some of the benefits that we experienced. And so it'll be a real example case study that we're doing right now and living right now. So before we go here, Neil, I just wanted to see if there's any particular last thoughts, takeaway that you want to share with us today.
Yeah, no, thanks, Shane. I guess if I had to just summarize things, I'd say I really do believe this. And I came to Profix 5 years ago when people were talking about machine learning and algorithms, and I've seen the evolution of AI in the office of the CFO. And I really think we're at that threshold of the next great evolution. The office of the CFO, they're shifting away from record keeping to being really strategy shaping. And AI, I want to say this to the people that are listening, AI isn't replacing people. It's really there to empower you. We have customers that have grown their revenues multiple fold without adding people to the finance team. But when the finance team uses AI, they feel so much more empowered in how they're helping companies. So with Profix One Intelligence, the finance teams that we work with, they gain clarity, they gain capacity, they gain the confidence to lead the business forward. And for everybody, the future of finance is autonomous. Machines are going to do work, but it's still human at its core.
Yeah. I think AI is just going to expand and grow to have opportunity. Hopefully we'll get to experience more successful businesses grow at a faster pace, more value added to people, which then increases the pie effectively, and the larger pie and more opportunities.
Absolutely.
Well, Neil, I really appreciate this time today and really good discussion. And I look forward to continuing our discussion and coming back and talking a little bit in a few months too.
Absolutely, Shane. Let's meet again and talk about all the great results. Take care, my friend. We'll talk soon.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Bender CFO Podcast. Help us out by subscribing on YouTube so you don't miss another episode, or listen to us on Spotify and rate us 5 stars so more people can get this content to help their businesses grow and be successful.